A relationship can end on a random Tuesday, months before anyone actually says the words out loud. Researchers who study breakups call this the emotional divorce, and it almost always happens quietly, in a dozen small moments you might be missing right now. I'm Zara, and this is Zara Explains Love, your unpaid but very invested best friend in matters of the heart. Today, 10 quiet signs a relationship has already ended emotionally, even if the breakup talk hasn't happened. One of these shows up in 94% of couples heading for divorce, according to Gottman's own lab. Number 10. The Vanishing Future-Talk. Listen for what stops being said. Healthy couples constantly drop tiny future references. Next year's trip, someday's apartment, that dog you'll get eventually. Psychologists call this a couple's shared narrative, and it's one of the strongest glue agents in a relationship. When it quietly disappears, the bond is often already loosening. Picture this. You mention a friend's wedding next spring, and instead of asking what you'll wear, your partner just says, "That's far away," and changes the subject. Nobody fights about it. It just stops coming up. The fix isn't forcing grand plans, it's testing gently. Bring up something small, 3 months out, and watch how it lands. If future you consistently gets left out of the conversation, don't panic, but do get curious out loud. Ask directly whether they still picture you both down the road. Silence there tells you more than any argument would. Number 9. The curiosity drop. In new relationships, people ask endless questions. What's your childhood dog's name? What scares you? What's your dream Tuesday? Social psychologists call this information seeking a core driver of intimacy. When it flatlines, closeness often flatlines with it. Here's the scene. Your partner comes home, and instead of asking how your big meeting went, they just say, "Dinner's ready," and turn on the TV. It's not cruelty. It's often exhausted autopilot, but autopilot, sustained for months, becomes distance. The fix is refreshingly simple and research-backed. Ask one new, real question a day, the kind with an actual follow-up. Not "good day," but "what was the hardest part of today?" Curiosity is trainable. It's a habit, not just a feeling. If you try reviving it and it bounces off a wall of indifference for weeks, that's the data point that matters more than the silence itself. Number 8. Ignored repair attempts. Every couple missteps, snaps a little, misreads a tone. What saves relationships isn't avoiding conflict, it's the small repair afterward. The joke, the hand on the arm, the "sorry, that came out wrong." Gottman's research calls these repair attempts, and their success rate predicts relationship survival better than the fights themselves. When repairs stop landing, when your usual peace offering gets a flat "it's fine" with cold eyes, something deeper has shifted. Imagine reaching for their hand after a sharp exchange, the way you always do, and they just don't take it. Once is nothing. A pattern is information. The move here is to name it plainly and kindly. "I noticed my usual way of making up isn't working anymore. Can we figure out a new one together?" If they're willing to build a new repair ritual with you, that's real hope. If the offer itself gets brushed off, the disconnect runs deeper than the argument. Number 7. Contempt sneaking into small talk. Not big blow-ups, tiny eye rolls, sarcastic sighs, a mocking tone over something as small as loading the dishwasher wrong. Gottman's lab found contempt to be the single most corrosive emotion in relationships, more damaging than anger, because it signals one partner now sees the other as beneath them. Picture this. You make a small mistake, and instead of "no worries," you get a smirk. And of course you did. It stings more than it should, and that's the point. Contempt is designed to diminish. This is worth an upcoming deeper look later in this list, because it often travels quietly alongside sign number 1. For now, the actual fix. Call it out the moment it happens calmly. "That tone felt dismissive. Can we try that again?" Contempt that gets named and softens is repairable. Contempt that gets defended and repeated is a much louder signal than any fight. Number 6. building a solo social life without noticing. Quick question for you. When's the last time your partner was the first person you told good news? Attachment researchers call this proximity seeking, our built-in drive to bring big feelings back to our person first. When that instinct quietly redirects to a friend, a sibling, even a coworker, it's often because the relationship has stopped feeling like a safe home base. Here's the scenario. You get promoted, and you're 3 texts deep telling your best friend before it even occurs to you to mention it to your partner. That's not betrayal. It's your nervous system voting with its feet. The fix is to notice the pattern without shame and deliberately redirect one piece of news back to them first, even if it feels oddly formal at first. If doing that feels awkward or pointless rather than natural, that discomfort is the real signal worth sitting with. Number 5, the conflict that just stops. This one surprises people. Silence isn't peace, it's often the loudest sign. Couples therapists point to something called conflict withdrawal, where partners stop bothering to fight because fighting implies the relationship is still worth fighting for. Imagine this. You used to argue about whose turn it was to plan date night. Now you just don't go. No argument, no tension, just quiet scheduling around each other. It can look like maturity from the outside. Often it's resignation. The real fix is almost countercultural. Deliberately raise one small disagreement you've been swallowing out loud this week. If it sparks real engagement, even an uncomfortable one, that's actually good news. Proof there's still investment underneath. If it gets met with a shrug and it doesn't matter, that flat indifference is far more telling than any shouting match would ever be. Number 4. Touch turns purely functional. Early on, touch is exploratory, a hand on the back just because. Over time, in struggling relationships, touch narrows down to logistics only, passing a plate, moving past each other in a hallway, a peck that's more habit than affection. Psychologists studying affectionate touch link its decline directly to drops in relationship satisfaction, often before either partner consciously notices. Picture the hallway moment. You brush past your partner reaching for coffee, and there's zero acknowledgement, not even a glance. That absence of contact is data. The kind fix here is low stakes and low pressure. Reintroduce brief, non-demanding touch, a hand on the shoulder passing by, nothing that requires a response. Watch what happens next. Leaning in, even slightly, is a good sign. Stiffening or stepping away consistently tells you the disconnect has moved past the emotional and into the physical, which is worth naming directly and gently. Number 3. You start rehearsing their reactions before you even speak. This is subtle and sneaky. If you catch yourself mentally scripting how to bring something up, softening it, timing it, bracing for a sigh, before you've even opened your mouth, part of you has already stopped expecting safety in the conversation. Researchers studying communication apprehension find this anticipatory bracing spikes specifically when trust in a listener's goodwill has eroded. Here's the scene. You want to mention you're tired and want a quiet weekend, and you spend 10 minutes drafting the perfect wording in your head like you're diffusing something. That mental effort is the tell. The fix is to test the theory directly. Say the plain, unscripted version once, and watch the actual reaction against the one you feared. Often it's kinder than expected, which is useful information too. If the guarded reaction keeps proving correct, that's your nervous system accurately reading the room. Number 2, feeling lonelier next to them than alone. This is the quiet, gut punch sign most people don't say out loud, even to themselves. Attachment researchers describe this as a failure of the safe haven function. The core job of a partner is to be the place distress goes to settle. And when proximity to them no longer soothes anything, the relationship has stopped doing its most basic job. Imagine sitting on the same couch, physically together, scrolling separately, and feeling more isolated than you would on an actual solo night in. That specific ache is worth trusting. The compassionate next step isn't blame. It's a direct, vulnerable sentence. I've been feeling lonely even when we're together, and I want to understand why. Said without accusation, this often becomes the single most productive conversation a struggling couple can have. Said and met with defensiveness instead of curiosity, it usually confirms what the loneliness was already telling you. And number one, the one nobody sees coming because it happens in the mind, not in any conversation: emotional divorce. Therapists use this term for the moment someone quietly stops investing before any words are ever exchanged. They've mentally moved out while still physically staying. Gottman's research found this pattern present in 94% of couples who later divorced, often existing for months or years before anyone says it aloud. It looks like this. You've stopped introducing your partner's flaws to friends as endearing quirks and started listing them as evidence. You've stopped picturing them in updates to your life. Part of you has quietly filed the relationship as finished, even as you keep sharing a bed. The only real fix is radical honesty with yourself first. Ask directly whether you're still emotionally invested or simply staying out of habit, guilt, or fear of the mess of leaving. If you find real investment still there, say so out loud and fight for repair together. If you find it's genuinely gone, the kindest thing left is honesty, not more silence. Here's the thread running through every single one of these. Relationships rarely end with a bang. They end in absences. The missing question, the untaken hand, the future that quietly stopped getting mentioned. The good news is that almost every sign on this list is also a doorway back in, if you catch it early and say the honest thing out loud instead of just noticing it quietly. So tell me in the comments, which one of these hit closest to home for you? And if this helped you see your relationship a little more clearly, subscribe to Zara Explains Love. I'll see you in the next one.